putting it in situations, in situations where we were faced with things that were intensely human, that we get, we would have emotional responses to that can only be human, and then we watch her response to the same thing and see that she's not responding the way we are, she's not feeling anything, and then we just keep layering that on,
There's a moment whenever he was shooting that kid, and the kid tries to stand up, and it's so fucking heroic. It's like that kid has learned to sort of walk in the horror of that moment. In the depths of that moment, he's going to get on his feet. And that actually to me is like the frame of the film that I love. It's just that kid trying to stand up.
The way we are getting inside that alien's head is by looking at us as if we were a foreign object.
We wanted to present the idea that this alien entity wanted us for something, but what exactly they wanted us for wasn't necessary. You can't show an alien entity, it's not possible, but you can allude to one, you can allude to the idea of it, or the feeling of it, the dread of it. She's not really a she, even, she's an it, and it is a force. It's a dispassionate. It's a dispassionate entity. It's like the sea. The craft was her. The spaceship was her. The body as craft. I mean, that's very much the sort of a central idea in the film. The paradox of body and soul. So that was our science fiction. She's our science fiction.
Really, it was a massive organisation process, because there was a lot of footage, certainly on particular days where they were shooting in the van, and 9 cameras were rolling for like up to 4 hours a night. So 30 odd hours of material would come in at one moment in time, and you've got 24 hours until the next lot comes in. So to process that, as in organise it, make sense of it, select it, we went through a process with all of that material where we stacked it up on 9 layers and created 9, actually it's 8, picture-in-pictures. So you could actually view, the plan really was to be able to view all of these cameras simultaneously, so that you were selecting and judging moments in time rather than camera angles, because those camera angles were fixed, so you were looking for content. So really my job up in Scotland was getting all of that organised so that when the shoot finally came to a sort of a conclusion, we had everything ready to go and start editing, kind of with knowing where every frame was. So we were cutting 9 or 10 scenes a week for 10 weeks. We got to a point where we'd cut them all together. We'd cut all the scenes, and then at the end of that 10-week period, we cut the scenes together to make a film, in inverted commas. Of course, it wasn't going to be a film, and that was a eureka moment, because it was terrible. It was 88 scenes that had naturally had no relationship to any of the others, and it was just this series of short films. And I was 2.5 months in the cutting room, and probably, I think, 3 or 4 months prior to that, I was 7 months into a process with nothing to show for it. And that was definitely a eureka moment. And the eureka moment was, you kind of start again. Actually, weirdly, I think that was sort of the eureka moment we had. And I remember, because John's been through this a few times before, he put his arm around me and said, "Don't worry, Paul, it'll be all right, because we know the footage now. We know, and we did. We knew the material inside out. We had between us almost a photographic memory of 230 hours of material." John was very keen at places within the film to layer things up. He wanted to see multiple images, and I think there's something about it somehow, I think it's part of an alien perspective, if you like. It's the inability to process something, so you just put them on top of each other. And then when you hit upon something like that, and it's like, that's it. That's what it needs to be at that moment. That sense of preciousness, and like almost like a Russian icon painting. That goldness that comes through humanity just felt very poetic in that moment. And it wasn't designed, and it wasn't stumbled upon, but it came out of one of a series of going up streets and going down cul-de-sacs to see what's there. there's a 7 or 8 minute sequence in the film that is basically takes the place of maybe 4 lines in the script. There's a scene 14 in the script is basically getting to know Laura. So Laura's been to the shopping centre, she's been to Debenham, she's got some clothes, she's got in a van, she's put some lippy on. And it's from that moment, it's about discovering who she is, what she's doing, how she's doing it. For me, I'd say that was a very intricate and a very complex editorial challenge, and we spent many, many weeks really working on that 7 or 8 minutes. And it was something that we didn't even begin to attempt until we'd finished a first pass of the whole film, because I think we kind of needed to have an idea of exactly who we wanted Laura to be able to define her within that scene 14 up front. When you land on the beach and you're slightly in more traditional filmmaking land, you want to know, you want to understand that you are seeing this now from an alien perspective, and that I feel was a massive task, actually.